Yes, go back to SFeatleyTV here for a episode 2 of done episode 1 about the Wenger years. This is for episode 2 of the historical Gunners show. Right, we're gonna go back to the very start, 1886, the birth of Arsenal Football Club. 1925 really. We'll do Herbert and give him a separate show because he's the legend. Manny in the chat. Hey.
Can't complain. Happy to be with you as always, and I hope you're well.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. I mean, we'll get it. Now I've looked at the because I was not born in that era. I know a bit about it, but not like an absolute not off your head roof, if you know what I mean. Yeah, we'll swerve that. I'll jot some stats. We'll go. So Arsenal, late 1886, you had the Arms Factory in Woolwich, which actually was a building that used to go past after because I used to live near there. And a group of workers from that factory decided we're gonna make a football team, and we're gonna call it after the sundial at the factory entrance, which was called Dial Square. So they set up this football team. They played their first game against Eastern Wanderers, beating them, actually thrashing the shit out of them 6-0. As you do. Then shortly afterwards, they decided we're going to call ourselves Royal Arsenal. So just changed the name from Dial Square to Royal Arsenal. Now, the reason why we wear red now, because obviously beginning we borrowed shirts from our first kit was in this color. If you remember, obviously the 2006 shirt we got back here, it was obviously to commemorate that era. The reason why we turned to red and white and never looked back, we can thank the newly promoted team to the Premier League, Nottingham Forest, who were created about 20 years earlier, and a group of players from Nottingham Forest joined Arsenal, and they asked for their former club to a spare kit. So Nottingham Forest agreed and gave Arsenal their spare home red kit. So, at which point Arsenal were forever wearing red. And that's why we all say North London and London is red. So, yeah, Manny, I mean, like, is this obviously very like early years of Arsenal, and they're definitely not the powerhouse that we all know now, the third biggest club in the country, but compared to some teams, they've been sort of the new kids on the block at the time.
Yep, definitely, and it's quite interesting to see how, you know, from their origins they had to obviously borrow a kit to make sure that they could start the process of getting themselves established. But it's also wonderful to see the working class roots of this team, and that sort of gives you an idea in many ways of the significance of staying of those values and how they've shaped the club, and how for the most part, whenever a manager would come to Arsenal, that person would try to live up to those values in the best way possible. It's a bit of a shame, really, how in this age of excess commercialization, most of that seems to have been forgotten. And good bit about the claret shirt being worn in 2006, it seemed poetic, really, and fitting that in their last season of Highbury they would wear those claret shirts.
Also something that actually Arsenal website doesn't actually tell you, and they should do it, to be honest. and you make a great point there, and obviously, great. If we look at obviously what happened with the Super League, you really saw that like how the fans said that this is a working man's game, and we have tradition and values at these clubs that you can't just take away just because you want to make money. Especially if you've got clubs that have got massive success like Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United throughout the years. So I'm going to go to actually the one of them don't actually say this on the website. Actually, one of the founding members or the principal founding member of Dial Square FC, which is now known as Arsenal, was David Danskin, who was a Scottish mechanical engineer who happened to work at the armoure's factory. And he was one of the main orchestrators of creating the football club in the first place.
Yep, he bought the club's football, I believe.
Yes, I believe they bought the club's football and just sort of helped them. They borrowed a certain amount of areas around Plumstead Common, around the Plumstead area. For a number of times, they went through Invicta Ground, they went to Manor Ground, renting wherever they could find cheapest at the time. And it weren't till like the club really established itself. They really established themselves at Manor Ground in 1889 and 1890. And at the Manor Ground, they made their first FA Cup appearance, along with a hat trick of successes in local cups. That you sort of the local ladder that you have to climb to get into towards the first or second division, which back then you only had two divisions really. Back then, so if you wanted to start a team back in them days, it was quite easy, like to get to the top. It's probably quite easy than it is these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the following year, Arsenal then had to move back to Invicta Ground because of financial reasons, with the rent going up at Manor. So they went back to there. But their overall increase in playing success, it brought one thing, which was professionalism, and it pissed off the football authorities, right, because of the professionalism of the squad. I think it was just around about the era where you were fighting with amateur teams where they said you can't buy players, right, or pay for players. They have to be like amateur volunteers and something like that. If you watch the English game on Netflix, you get an idea of what this like, of what a team that brought two players from Scotland were paying them, and actually this fight between getting it off the amateur teams who basically run the authorities as well. So they had the complete control of. It was basically you had the workers who had to work all day and didn't have any time to train against the people who were basically employers who had all the time in the world because they had all the money. So they couldn't. So it's that sort of social circle that they had to break to get these teams to through the authorities. So if you want to watch the English game, that's definitely an eye opener. Yeah, anyway, as I was saying, because we pissed them off, they expelled us from the London FA and boycotted also many other southern clubs. This is also a time when Arsenal became Woolwich Arsenal from Royal Arsenal. Not too long after. But yeah, as I said, the manner with the rent increasing all the time between Invicta and the Manor Ground, they then bought out the Manor Ground entirely. So they moved from Invicta back to Manor Ground and then applied to be in the Football League, the Football Association's Football League's second division, which they managed to gain success in. So that was just probably towards the end of the. Look at that. It was towards the end of By the way, if you haven't smashed the like, please do. It really does help. Yeah, it was basically towards the very latter part of the 19th century that we finally got into the second division. And then gradually over time, we grew and grew and grew and improved on our position. And then finally in 1903, just 3 years after the turn of the century, we eventually achieved promotion to Division 1. This while at the Manor Ground. And 3 years later, we reached a semi-final 2 seasons running of the FA Cup. But there was an increasing problem with Arsenal Football Club at the time, which was we couldn't afford to stay at Manor Ground. It was costing too much in expenses to get games played there or travel to from games there, because I think most of the teams around that time were northern clubs as well. So it was either way with the facilities and the way to get to Plumstead. It wasn't very accessible, so it was costing Arsenal dearly, and so much so that we were our financial situation became so worse that we had relegation threatened on us, which was just before 1913. But then luckily a guy luckily the former Fulham chairman, Henry Norris, turned up at Arsenal and realised that we needed to move. If Arsenal were to survive, we needed to move. Simple as that. So, sites in London, and the reason they chose Highbury, I would say mainly, what was most ideal and one of the main reasons why they chose Highbury is because right next to it, was Gillespie Road tube station. Right, there was a tube station straight there, which made it a lot more accessible for everyone to turn up at. So that's where we decided to move. We decided to move there. So I believe Tottenham tried to lobby a request to have that stopped, which failed miserably. Oh well. Obviously, the FA saw the brighter side of things. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so Norris we knew he needed to move, and he marked Highbury out, which used to be the site of an old school, I believe, which was, I think, not used anymore. So they obviously moved there into 1913. 2 years later, by 2 years later, they changed the name from Woolwich Arsenal to Arsenal to not Woolwich, obviously. And also in 1913, at the end of the year, we faced relegation of that season. Or actually, we were relegated from that season. But because of the start of the First World War, it meant that the seasons weren't started until 1919-20 season, which meant I believe, and I believe, and I do try and looking up the sources here, so I'm trying not to get this wrong, because they extended the first division after the war, probably to get more games in for people to watch and stuff like that. So where the first division increased by 2 clubs, was increased by two positions. One of the clubs that benefited from this was Arsenal, which then obviously under the guidance of their new manager, which was Leslie Knighton at the time, Arsenal spent another 6 seasons in sort of mediocrity, sort of moderate success. I'd say mediocrity, moderate success, plodding along. But the chairman, Henry Norris, was like, "This ain't enough. I want more." And of course, you want more. You want to win the league. So in 1925, In 1925, he advertised for a new manager to step up and take the place and take the club forward. And of course, a up stepped a Yorkshireman by the name of Herbert Chapman, who decided to join. Who came from I believe Sheffield Wednesday. Came from Sheffield Wednesday, I believe. If not, it was Huddersfield. It's one of the two. I'm gonna actually. I've got to get this right. Otherwise, I'm gonna get it wrong. Otherwise, I'm gonna get crucified if I get it wrong. It's
He
one of
came
the
from Huddersfield, I think. Huddersfield.
Huddersfield. I do believe it was Huddersfield.
Yes.
Yeah. Huddersfield. Yeah, it was one of the two. And he came there from Huddersfield, and well, that part we'll leave to another show, shall we?
Yep.
But it changed. It changed Arsenal for forever. That decision to get a new manager. Obviously, but Arsenal sort of in that time it was more just a. It sounds like back in those days, rather than just plodding along and gradually getting up the leagues and getting to the top, it was more like despite getting success and success and success, we were struggling to survive in South London. Like, hence why the move north. And it's just it just looked like a team that was doing really well but struggling to just maintain itself. I mean, you see teams now that struggle in the league because of financial reasons, and it was kind of basically the same thing, right? And you can get all the success in the world, but if you can't finance yourself financially, eventually you're going to crumble. So, and that's what was happening to Arsenal until they moved to Highbury. I mean,
agreed. But here's the thing, though, Stephen. When it comes to their financial issues, those don't even compare to what's happening with Barcelona now and what's happened with quite a few other clubs like Leeds and Portsmouth or what have you. I think for those clubs, it's a case of them being a little bit, irresponsible with their finances, hoping to try to build something even bigger. Here, it seems to me that when it comes to Arsenal struggles, they had an almost inaccessible ground, and the facilities weren't up to scratch.
no.
And I find it strange in a way that the club would even consider going along the route of professionalism and paying some of their players because, you have to make sure that you do have a proper, a strong financial base before you can even think of paying your players in that respect. And there were quite a few amateur players. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you look at the English game, like the film, like the series, right, it's mainly about really when this one guy who signed up for a very local team then decided to take more money from a club called Blackburn. It was owned by a rich owner, and was happy to pay for it. And because of that, Blackburn became the first professional team to win the FA Cup. And actually, since that, I think since that FA, no amateur team has won the FA and ever will, because you're not getting all the biggest players in the world to play higher. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
so it's unless you have a strong what Macy's saying, Blackburn had a strong financial base to be able to pay players. Arsenal didn't.
Exactly.
So
And I mean the facilities as well weren't really up to scratch, and you cannot even think of fielding a professional team if you can't train that team professionally. And of course, with the attendance as being a factor, I mean that's pretty much one of your main sources of revenue. At that time, you didn't have sponsorships, mind you.
well, I mean, if you look at the training facilities, even Arsenal even trained up. Even when we moved to Highbury, we still had no training facilities. Most of all of our training facilities were done at the ground. You can ask Liam Brady. He said some of our training sessions were done at Highbury. rather than London Colney. I don't think when did London? I'm going to actually look at that. When did London Colney be first built? Colney, Arsenal was built.
All the way in Hertfordshire.
Its construction was in 1998 to 1999. It cost £10 million. Right,
So that
quite
wasn't.
cheap. That's quite cheap. That's quite cheap for a training facility, and opened in 11th of October 1999. So,
And never mind the fact that it was cheap. It wasn't even there when George Graham was at the club and we were earning that much success. So you can
I know.
imagine what a magician Graham was to get the best out of his players. That'll be a story for another day. But when it comes to it just goes to show that nowadays, when you want to be a professional football club, you can't do things by halves. You've got to make sure that you have everything you need. At that time, it was sort of we have this much money, we want to try something. Let's see what we can do, what we can make out of it. So I guess it was sort of a learn as you go approach, if you will.
Yeah, I think that was the whole point of it when they started the team. It's just said, like, we're going to start this team. Probably is like local, like your local business. Like I say, like we have our workers. We have a local, like we have local training sessions or anything like that, or when you join a certain company or something like that, we have a local sports day or something like that. They thought, oh, we'll make a football team and see what we can do. And when they started getting some success, which they obviously did do, they were like, okay, then let's see if we can build on that. Let's see if we can actually turn this into a proper club and into a professional club. By the way, I've missed some people's in the chat, so I do apologise. I've had to get that first part of describing actually the hotel beforehand. Obviously, big up Manny yourself. Big up Tio. Hope you're doing well. I'm all good. Big up Ananatic. Hope you're doing well. What's up, Bargav, my man? Obviously a member. Big up. Big up Manzi as well, especially if you're using my real name. Stephen and Manny, big up as well. And yeah, please do smash a like on the video. Why? I know probably loads of Arteta winners are probably thinking, oh, not 1886. When was that? Like, hey, mate, the way they're going about their club, I would be surprised if they don't know anything about 1886, right? Or any of our standards that we created back then, right? Or all the traditions, because they talk like they don't have any standards or traditions. So, but there you go.
And that segues into this whole thing. I mean, it's so amazing how so many of these big clubs in the English league have had very strong working class roots, which have been the pride of the people who've been involved for quite a long time. Of course, with increased commercialism, we would often sort of sneer at these clubs when they'd be taken over by these big owners, bringing all of this success coming into the team. We sort of call them plastic teams. You sometimes get the firm fear that we've now become a plastic team without the success, and that's rather tragic to see. Hopefully, a show like this can help remind people of that, if you know what I
mean. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking for replies here. Because I put this guy, for example, he said, what did he say? Say nothing. Arteta's army are here to take over. We're here to take over. To anyone who says otherwise, F off. Really? And I went, he spent 300 million for one season, and then, hang on. He spent 300 million and having 3 seasons to try and still ain't got top 4. Yet an elite manager like Klopp don't need 300 million to get top 4 in one season and then win the Champions League in the next. And I've got facts. Go to sleep. I'm like, I'm scared. Scared of what?
Are you checking Twitter?
No, I'm checking Instagram. I'm literally scared of
Right.
what? Scared of what? Right? Scared of you actually having standards, and know your football club. Don't make me laugh. Seriously. You go. Sorry. Uh, uh, about Arteta. Right. Right. Embarrasses the whole fan base. Whole fan base. Couldn't post a comment. Why couldn't I post a comment? Oh, fucking man.
Yeah. You know, I'm just taking a look right now.
He's replying. No, mate. I'll actually no. Do you know what? Fuck it. I'll call him up. EBZ Dogan, like, yeah, on Insta. Yeah. Scared of what, mate? Scared of what? What's Arteta done? Tell me. Tell me what Arteta's done, and I'll be scared.
Are they
Until
replying
then,
to your account or which account is this?
no, this is my Instagram. I put something. No, someone posted that, like, put a post up about Arteta, right? So I replied to it back saying, yeah, right, whatever. Right? He's replying me on being scared. So I'm saying, scared of what? Scared of actually wanting to win things. Scared of what? Arteta couldn't scare me across the fucking road. For fuck's sake. Jesus Christ. Give me strength. Right, anyway, I want to talk about Arsenal's actual standards, which was back in the 1880s, when actually we still had more success than Arteta has in these last 4 years. Innit? We had more success in 1886 when we first formed than Arteta's had in 3 seasons.
Yeah, we won the Kent Senior Cup, London Charity Cup, London Senior Cup.
I should put that in. He said, really? So why has he had less success than we had in 1886 when we were formed? Dickheads. Sorry. It makes me laugh. Oh, makes me laugh, honestly. There's way they're going about it, it's so bad. But yeah, I mean, like, Arsenal just the reason obviously I wasn't when I first looked at Arsenal as a team to support. Obviously, major influence was my family because most of them are Arsenal. But then once you start supporting, you get to know the history a bit more as you grow older. What I used to love is about the fact that we always had class. Even and you can see it even in the early years, we had class about us. Right? We tried to do things the right way, right? And it just upset a lot of people at the same time. Like you said, it upset the Scottish. It upset the football authorities back in the early back in the 1800s because we wanted to do things in the right way, right? So, and in the end, it proved to be the right way because, and no matter what Arsenal did, whether they moved to Highbury, no matter whether they stayed in Manor Ground or whatever, they always were going to do things in that right way with that right standard. Right? And what hurts now is that you don't see that standard or that right way anymore.
No.
You don't see it. You don't see it anymore. Right?
No.
You'd never get this, like what's on here, right, or what's on the website. Right? I bet, and this is the thing, most of those people that have replied on there, right, saying that that's what that guy has said on Insta is true, right, about Arteta, right, guarantee you none of them have visited the frigging Arsenal history page. None of them. Not one. Because if they did, they'd realise what we've got right now is nothing compared to what we were doing then. And we were only just formed then. Right?
Yeah.
We were only been, like, even in our first game, what did Arteta do? Nothing. Right? What did we do in our first game when we were formed? Beat the shit out of someone 6-0. Like, just says it all, mate. It does say it all.
Agreed.
And of course, I didn't want to make this about obviously comparing it to now on Arteta, but sometimes you have to sort of show the impact of why people need to check their history, right? And also why we should be keeping the standards the same.
Agreed. It's not even Arteta, mind you. When you have a situation where one of the players, one of the supposedly first team regulars, Benjamin White, talks about how he doesn't even know who Patrick Vieira is and how he doesn't even bother to, educate himself about the club. I mean, that's ridiculous. You think that
that's a scandal,
a large number of foreign players who come over to the Premier League to play talk with such pride about being fans of the club in their childhood. Zinchenko being one of them. When Peter Schmeichel came to Manchester United, he used to dream about playing at Old Trafford, and that's sort of how it's proved.
But even if you weren't a fan of the club, you still know. I'm not a fan of Man United, but I know Giggs, I know Scholes, I know Beckham, I know Duncan, who is he?
I mean, you'll be old enough to remember.
Who is it? Duncan Edwards.
Yeah, Duncan Edwards. Right?
Yeah, Duncan Edwards, Bobby Charlton. I always know those legends as well. Yeah. I always know those legends as well.
Yeah, at least try to educate yourself on the people who made history at the club, if not the actual history itself. And there's another aspect about the history of Arsenal. Woolwich actually at that time was a part of Kent, but then it ended up becoming,
part of London,
part of the city of London. And of course, growing up as a Kent boy myself, the more I know,
the area didn't become a great part of London until about the 1970s.
Agreed. So when you take a look at that sort of history and think of how significant that was, I mean, the more I know, the more I feel actually really happy to be a part of that. And growing up, when I first started watching football, I couldn't really think of a team which I could really get behind. For me, it was always about the international games, the World Cup every 4 years, the European Championships every 4 years. So I only started watching club football after Italia 90. And I remember watching Arsenal beat Liverpool 3-0 in that 1991 season where we only lost that one game where we could have had an full season. That was the season I really started to like Arsenal. Great defensive solidity.
And I tell you what, you were saying about like the Kent area. When we moved to North London, everyone called us like all the Tottenham faithful would call us travellers, right? Travelling on their territory and shit like that. Yeah, well, you lot were part of Middlesex before you were part of Greater London. What are you on about? We were in Greater London. We were in London. You were in Middlesex. So who's so you're just as bad as we are. Shut up. Get on with it.
And that bit you mentioned about Tottenham trying to be an obstacle in our formation.
Yeah, they tried to veto against it. So they knew we were going to come and smash the granny out of him. They could see it. They had a prophecy ball. Like they were going to be the confessional bottlers of the league, while we just rampant above them.
Yeah, I mean, of course, to be fair, they did have their moments.
They should have chosen my lottery numbers.
Yeah.
But you got to use anything to have a go at something, you know.
So you could say that that was probably when the rivalry was sort of formed, because maybe
Oh yeah,
maybe as Arsenal fans we feel these guys tried to stop us from existing. How
yeah.
dare they? We have a right to exist, and now we're not going to we're going to make sure that they don't achieve too much. But it's been interesting to see that rivalry over the years, and that's a story for another day, I suppose.
Well, that rivalry is it just instigated from that because they feel like we've trespassed on their land, right?
Right.
They're and settled on their land, right?
Hmm.
We're saying that we had every right to move. The football association said we had every right to move, to keep us in the league and stop us from going bankrupt, right? And if you don't like it, shove it, right?
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's one of them, innit? Stick that up you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So and what's even grown the rival even more is that they've sat there and watched Arsenal get better and better and better and get more and more success while they've had 60-61 and never again. Never again.
No.
Right? And all they've
Yeah.
done since then is bottle it, bottle it, bottle it, bottle it. But I think the first time we actually bottled it to them was last season. And who was the manager? Thank
Mikel Arteta.
you. Yeah, right. I've just replied to him and said, "Yeah, I'm scared of someone who bottles to Tottenham." Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was one. There were a few occasions when I think we both qualified for the Champions League, but they finished above us. I think the fact that we made it to the Champions League probably took the sting out of it. But last season, because we missed out on top four, I think that stung even more. Yeah, Stephen.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah. I think what I was saying was that whenever they would finish above us, I think it was really only in the last in the penultimate season of Arsene Wenger that we started dropping out of the top four. Whenever we finished behind them, we'd also qualify for the Champions League. But that also makes last season's fifth place finish a lot more unbearable because we finished below Tottenham and we got out of the Champions League as well. And that as well should be a signal that we cannot keep, we cannot keep putting our eggs in the basket of qualifying for the top four and giving ourselves the added schadenfreude of finishing above Tottenham. No, we have to start to aim back higher again. But I would venture to say, when we started to become successful, we never even thought that finishing above Tottenham would be the be-all and end-all. We wanted to win. Even during the period when we had some struggles before Norris came in and saved us, we did have some good FA Cup runs, but obviously the financial problems contributed to our struggles in the league, and then we were still keeping our head above water. In 1912 or 13, we got relegated, but one thing which needs to be mentioned is that there was a petition, I think. We finished 6 and 4 in 1914, 1915, but we somehow ended up coming back into the first division based on our history and contribution to the sport. So that in itself should be a reminder of the struggles that the club faced and how they had to make sure they conducted themselves in the right way.
Yeah, I mean,
and
look. Well, actually, I say that they said we were relegated in 1913, but then the start of the First World War happened.
Yeah.
And obviously, after the First World War, I think maybe because they wanted that extra games in the first division, they extended the league. So they thought, who's the highest bidder?
Who's the what?
I think it was who was the highest bidder at the time, wasn't it? Or I might be wrong on that.
Maybe. I think it's mentioned here. On past president, two new entrants were to be elected in the AGM. That was when the first division was being expanded to 22 teams from 20, and it ended up coming back to ironic, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So the two new entrants were there. On past precedent, the two places would be given to the two clubs that would otherwise have been relegated, but instead, one of the extra places was awarded to Chelsea, and a ballot was called for the remaining place. So in addition to Tottenham, there were from the second division Barnsley, who had finished third, Wolverhampton, who were fourth, Birmingham, who were fifth, that was later amended to sixth, Arsenal, who ended up finishing, who had finished sixth then, but thanks to correction of the oversight, they ended up finishing fifth. And then Hull City and Nottingham Forest. And the league voted to promote Arsenal for reasons of history over merit. So let's think of let that put things into perspective, yeah. It sort of puts things into puts into perspective how important it is to make sure that you have not just a strong foundation but a good history, and also you know how to keep your nose clean and do things the right way. And if that petition hadn't have been made, can you imagine the course of our history? How much we would have struggled, how much how things would have been different. And then, of course, a few seasons later, the club fired Knighton and brought in Herbert Chapman. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, we always say that if ifs and buts were sweets and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. But just think, just imagine, if it hadn't have been for that vote by committee to get us back into the first division that year, what would have become of our history? And that is something that Arsenal fans need to know. And of course, the fact that we got it at the expense of Tottenham would probably mean that they'd have another reason to hate our guts.
Exactly. That's why I just mentioned this. Is that like I'm scared of a manager, and that's why like I was saying is that I mean this whole Spurs thing, like I said before, right? And I just said it now, and this is why we say like you have to keep a good standard at the club. So if you bottle it against Tottenham like we did last season, that's sackable offence. Sackable offence. Sorry, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the best manager in the world. It's a sackable offence. You can't do it, right? That's what I just said to this guy there. I said, yeah, I'm really shaking in my boots about a freaking manager who bottled it against Spurs. Yeah, I'm really scared. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
One thing Spurs and Arsenal have in common is they both reached the Champions League final. Funny. Right? That's one thing we haven't achieved. Arsenal to win the Europa and the league, and if we do that, we'll feel like we won a Champions League. Jesus Christ! Big up Static. Yes, I know I've been meaning to do this for ages, but it is definitely started, and next week should have another episode. If not, it'll be the week after, depending on what the schedule looks like.
Static, good to see you.
12 likes and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe and like button now. If you haven't, what are you doing? Right? Maybe all the Spurs fans have just hit the dislike button.
I don't know. I mean, it's sad, really. I mean, if they come over here and they start hitting the dislike button, I mean, that's just trolling at the highest level. Do you have any mates who are Spurs fans, by the way? I mean, do you enjoy taking the mickey out of each other?
Oh, I have friends who are Spurs fans. How many more episodes? Oh fuck, Jesus! So we've had the Wenger the Wenger years, the first 10 years of that. So that's one. This one's two. We'll probably do one on the 50s to the about mid 60s, I'd say. That's about episode 3. Episode 4 will be obviously about from there to the past the double, our first double, and then going into the Don Howe, Terry New era will be episode. There'll be another episode for that. Then there'll be an episode for the George Graham era, because obviously we had a mountain of success there. And then we'll have the second part of Wenger. So that'll be 6 or 7. 6 or 7, depending on how it works out.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like you to think and make sure that you really add a lot more if you can, because I mean, obviously there are one or two historical channels on YouTube, but if you make it interactive, it's a lot more fun. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the thing is like if anyone goes and checks Jersey channel out, please do go and subscribe to him. He probably goes into a lot more detail than maybe we will in terms of the history. And that's probably just because he knows a lot more about the club than I do myself. because but yeah, I mean, if you want more detail, then definitely go and check those out. But if you want to just like a brief overview, like of Arsenal's history, then check these ones out because, and this is why we do them, so that people, so it's just to remind people that what our standards are, right? Where our values come from, where our traditions come from, and why what we're seeing right now with this club is not good enough. It's not good enough, right? Compared to what's come before us, it's not good enough. And anyone that says it isn't is plain deluded. It is plain delusion if you think it is. Sorry, I don't care if you disagree with me. That's my opinion. Right? My opinion is you're delusional if you think this is good enough compared to what we have as history. Right? Because, like you said, history counts us a lot. History managed to get us back in the league when we were supposed to be relegated. Right? So there we go. So history can mean a hell of a lot. Right? And all our values and traditions have all come because of history. That's why most
Agreed.
teams that have come to Arsenal have supported Arsenal because of those values, those traditions. And at the moment, all I see is our owner, our board, our manager, right, and even our bloody players, right, destroy the traditions and values of this club. And I will not accept it.
Yeah.
Never accept it.
No.
Simple.
No. No.
So,
Now that segues into a question that I want to ask you, Stephen, because I think it was, the season before. I don't know if it was the season before last. That was when there was this whole controversy about the Super League, and that was when we had fans of clubs staging protests outside. And on one occasion, the protest actually turned a little bit dangerous, with some people walking into Old Trafford, throwing
yeah.
around. You might have heard of that. I remember having a discussion with my friends saying that that could actually be the death knell to the idea of fan ownership, because if fans aren't able to
You mean
control their emotions in
51%?
that manner, huh? What?
You mean the 50+1 rule?
Yeah, exactly. If the fans can't control their emotions and are subject to letting their
That's,
anger boil
yeah.
over at any minute, can
But
we
then
trust
you
them
see,
to own a club and make rational decisions?
well, yeah, I hear that. That's fine. But in the end, look at Germany, right?
Hmm.
There's not many protests there. I don't see fans getting irated for any particular reason, right? Because they know their clubs are safe. They're not going to go into some stupid competition where all it does is make money. They keep their values, they keep their traditions, and they keep their standards. And if they feel like someone's not good enough, they get rid of them, right? And that's why Bayern Munich are such a dominant force. It's why Borussia Dortmund are a dominant force, right? And are such they're big clubs as well, and they're just as big as what Arsenal and like some of the English clubs are, top English clubs are. So it can work, but will these owners give up 51% of their club? Hell no. That's this. Don't forget, this is Kroenke's insurance policy. Why is he going to give 51% up to the fans? Because he knows the fans will end up spending money and actually increase the standards of his club.
It
Because the
beggars
standards suit
belief.
him. The standards suit him because it makes him money.
I mean, he obviously can't be that naive to the promise of earning more riches and more money with success, because nothing succeeds like success. Wouldn't you agree?
Um, Go on.
No,
So
I was just saying that yeah, it is making him money with the status quo. But if the club were to earn a little bit more success and have more revenue coming in, surely even he can't be that naive to ignore that and just have things carry on in the same ennui as it is.
yeah, but this is Kroenke. He's done that before.
Now I call him cranky.
Mm, I'll be on tomorrow. Yeah, mate. Absolutely, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, I just answered that one, didn't I? Keep up the good work. Thank you. Unfortunately, I have to go. It's a busy day today. Could take, why static? Like I said, anyone who hasn't watched, then it's not a problem. You can watch it on playback. I ain't fast. As long as we do the show, that's the main thing. Take care, everyone. Hit the like button and subscribe. That's the main thing. Hit that like button and subscribe. But yeah, like we're gonna round. What should we round it off to? Is that after all these, like after all the dodging of financial regulations, all of the like threats and troubles that Arsenal have gone through, they finally managed to get themselves settled at Highbury, and then, well, then in 1925, like I said, a Yorkshireman named by the name of Herbert Chapman comes all the way from Huddersfield, and well, we'll let you know in the next episode, obviously, what that means. If you're an Arsenal fan, you definitely should know what it means, right? By the look of some of these, and by looking at some of these idiots on Instagram, right? They probably don't have a clue who he is, right? And probably think Arteta's better than him. Which, if they said that, I will tell them you're not an Arsenal fan.
I mean, you don't even need to be a history.
Some people actually believe it.
Yeah, you don't even need to be a history wonk as such, or a boffin, as we would say back in England. But at least be willing to learn more and willing to understand, and be willing to teach yourself. You can't just walk around saying you know everything there is to know. It's amazing how even long-time fans, supposedly long-time fans who've been fans of the club longer than even you and me, for example, have still fallen under the Arteta spell, saying we are trying for progress. I mean, it's silly. I mean, we've been used to better times, and now that we know the history which came before those times, you tend to cherish those successes even more. And you also have to look back with some introspection at the fact that when it comes to our European record, it's been abysmal. The only 2 European trophies we've won, both of them have been discontinued.
Mm.
The Fairs Cup and the Cup Winners' Cup. I was so gutted when they discontinued that. And it's devalued the UEFA Cup and the Europa League as a result.
Yeah, I understand that, mate, but that's the way things work in football.
Agreed.
Things change, don't they?
And of course, it is being the way things work. I mean, if it hadn't been for Norris's gift of gab, point is important to make. That's why KSC are spending more money now. What would you say to that, Stephen?
Important.
What I said about nothing succeeds like success, I think.
I can understand that, and I could see that Kroenke has seen pressure from Arsenal's fans to actually spend more. Does he really care if Arsenal do anything? If they get extra revenue from Europe, then yeah, fine. But do they actually really want to win? Do they feel like they're going to spend enough? My question is, yeah, they might be spending money, but do you feel they want to spend enough money to go and win the league? Do you really feel they have that ambition to go spend the amount of money they need to win the league? Because I don't think they do. I think they just spend enough to make sure they're in Europe, whether it's Europa League or the Champions League. They realise the Champions League, right, it's going to cost more to stay in it and be in it than it is to be in the Europa League and be in that. If you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, obviously the rewards are bigger if you get into the Champions League. And
of course. And I went through the prize money like way back, but what I'm saying is that if you're spending hundreds of millions just to stay in the Champions League, but you're only spending 50s of million, like 50 odd million, right, every season to stay in Europa League, you would want to stay in Europa League, wouldn't you?
But then here's the thing: it isn't even how much money is being spent; it's how the money is being spent and being made.
Yeah, and who's the manager spending it?
Yep. I mean, you take a look at Conte, what he's done. That is a person. I mean, He's a man on a mission, really. And
Oh, mate, the guy's a magician, mate.
yeah, how he was able to take that club, which was suffering under Nuno Santo, and bring them up to fourth place and kick us out of the top four in the process. I mean, that bloke should have been named manager of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, and then
I would say no to a percent 2 years ago, but with the but with the way they they invest now, and Josh having approach than Stan, I am not as certain anymore. Will give more clarity, but in general, no. So in general, no. You don't think they'll have they'll want to spend as much as possible to try and win the league, and actually have ambition, but you are not so certain at the minute. Get it? Right, okay. Anyway, we could go
hopefully
on.
Josh will be cut from a different cloth than his dad, but you never
Rather
know.
than, to be honest, like, there you go. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Because, like, obviously we've got more episodes coming up. I don't want we're going to end it there, because otherwise it will turn into a rambling session about our standards then and our standards now, which probably has been for the last 10 minutes. So we're going to end it there. Yeah. Let us know if you like the video. If you don't, if you think you can improve in any way, please let us know as well. Yeah. And lastly, last two comments from Saeed as well. Until they prove the opposite, I can't say need evidence, but time will tell, I guess. Great show, big up. My favourite on your yeah. Big up, man. Big up. Yeah, we're gonna leave it there. Make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe.
Yeah, and I want to say I love the initiative you've taken to make the claret border. Genius. You can never have Arsenal's history without the claret border.
Oh yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. If you're going back to the beginning, then obviously you got to. But yeah, we're gonna leave it there.
Bergkamp shirt in the background. I mean, it's fitting perfectly. That's also the claret shirt, isn't it?
I know, it's brilliant.
Yeah. But
mate,
one more final point there. That 2006 season, we were chatting about it. I was telling you that was when our standards as fans started to dip a little bit. You did say in a mitigating circumstance we were going great guns in the Champions League, winning at the Bernabeu, winning at the Stadio della Alpi, among other places, and going all the way to the final. But our league form did suffer. How did you feel? Be honest with me. How did you feel when our fans started singing "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles" as a means of saying thank you to West Ham for beating Spurs at the Berlin ground?
I was 11 that time, or 12. I was 11. I just got out of my third transplant, I believe. So I didn't mind them singing, to be honest. I didn't mind it.
To me, as I said, that was probably the moment when our standards as fans started to dip a little bit. Because me
as 11-year-old, I couldn't tell if our standards were going high or not until I got older. Until I realised we kept getting crashed out of the Champions League in the quarterfinals, and
agreed.
How might I put up with this?
Yeah, and one thing I will say is that given that Edward Sheringham, who was playing for West Ham, actually contrived to miss a penalty because he didn't want to harm his former club, the fact that Tottenham still lost anyway makes me so happy. He was a great player for England.
Did Sheringham scored that penalty?
No, he missed it, mate. He missed it.
No, he scored that penalty.
No, you can score that penalty.
Spurs.
West Ham 4, Tottenham 3, 2006.
Hang on, it was 2-1, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure it must have been 4. No. 4-2 was the Wigan result. It might have been 2-1. You're right.
Yeah, I swear it was. Let me have a look at their games. West Ham. Let me have a look at their games. All the way at the game.
Oh yeah, it was 2-1. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it was Fletcher who scored the goals. Defoe got one back for Tottenham, but Sheringham did miss that penalty.
Oh, Sheringham did miss that penalty. Okay.
Yeah. And there were a few West Ham fans who were not best pleased with that. I can tell you right now. And yeah, so seeing sharing suffer that day made it all the more worthwhile, because that bloke spoke
I
a lot
think
about
even
how
if they draw, I think if they even drew the game, they would have still lost.
maybe, I don't know, but he spoke a lot about how much he hated Arsenal so much that he played for both of our rivals. So, I mean, he was a talent as a footballer, but as a human being, he's an absolute louse. And there are several people who agree with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's really all I wanted to say, and I
I'm just
guess I
going to
just want
see
to
where we
say
finished. We finished, so 3.64. Yeah, we would have, if they drew that game, take. Oh no, they had 1 point. No, we had to win the game. We had to win the game.
Yeah, we had to win at Wigan.
We had to win at Wigan, right? Which would take us to 56. No. Actually, we would have qualified with 1 point, even
Yeah,
if they drew the game. We would have still top four. There you go. But that's another time. That's another story. Anyway, Manny, where can I find you?
You can find me on Instagram at MannyThungerThere1981. You can find me on Twitter at ThungerThere1981. You can also find me chewing a little bit of fat over here with my dear friend Mr. Featley. Always happy to be on board with you. And like I said, nothing else about me.
Wicked. Make sure you go and like, share, subscribe. Go follow me on Insta and Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Join the membership from as little as $1.99 a month. And you get great perks as well. And also part of the FPL League, if you join the membership, you get access to all the competitions, as not just the as there's a members one as well. So please go and subscribe and join the membership as well. Really does help the charity Big Star. And yeah, we're back with another episode of this hopefully next week, should the schedule be okay. If not, it will be the week after. And yeah, we're back at literally in 45 minutes, to be fair. We're back in 45 minutes because we have the preview to the Crystal Palace game. So
Awesome.
there you
Catch
go,
you.
first game of the season. So there we are. Make sure you hit the like, share, subscribe, and we will see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.